Excellent, excellent. Anyway, we're doing a series on what Jesus said about himself, what Jesus thought about himself, his sort of self-identification. And one of the things that Jesus said that I think is remarkable is when he said, "I am the light of the world." That's a huge statement. That's a big claim. I am the light of the world. What's this? I think we've got last week's video up here. I did load this week's. If you could find this week's for me, that would be even better. Thank you. It's the one that says light, and it should be on the system because I ran it through before we started this morning. Okay, good. Let's start again. Are we there? Are we? No. Right, okay. I'll put that down. For us, it might mean the warmth of, like a moth is drawn to the flame. There we go. Yay, thank you. It might mean the warmth of a light, like a moth is drawn to a flame. There's something attractive, something beautiful, something brilliant about his teaching, or the way that he just drew people to himself, the fascination of the stories, the need for the miracles, the finding that we receive comfort and warmth in his presence. I am the light of the world. And if that's you this morning, needing comfort, needing inspiration, needing wisdom, needing the warm light of his presence, then may you find it in Jesus, who is the light of the world. Amen. His presence is attractive and helpful and positive and comforting. I am the light of the world. C.S. Lewis said that Jesus is the light of the world, not just because we can see him, but through him we can see everything else. And I love that statement. I think it's certainly true that everything makes sense in the light of Jesus. The way he lived, we see the way that he encouraged us to be generous because by that we receive. He encouraged us to turn the other cheek because by that we turn enemies into friends. He expected us to be people who lived according to the ways that he did. And as we do that, we find that the dignity of the underdogs like the shepherds, the welcome for the lepers and the prostitutes, the way that he taught us that God is approachable like Papa, Dada, Abba, Father, the way that God knows us, the way that we're more valuable than the birds, the way that faithfulness and grace and forgiveness are such important concepts. I am the light of the world, and by this light you see so much that makes more truth. And for C.S. Lewis and for me, that goes beyond morals and ethics and how we live. It makes sense of everything else. That when Jesus said, I am the light of the world, it means he makes sense of astronomy and physics and maths and art and film studies and law and everything else. By his light, we see truth in those things too. I am the light for your studies. I'm the light for the way that you're reading and looking and perceiving the world. The light for what you are learning or reading or watching. The astronomer wants to study light, wants to understand it. Light is the marvelous waves or particles or whatever that bend or go straight to the object in order that we can see something ancient and beautiful and marvelous and clever. I am the light of the world, says Jesus. Ancient, beautiful, marvelous, mysterious. The artist wants to see the light. The artist wants to paint or depict something that captures the dance across the seascape or the hidden details and the new angles exposing truth. The artist wants to bring a lightness and a joy and a freedom and a fresh way of seeing something because he sees the light. And Jesus says, I am the light of the world. For the classical artist, often the lamp in the corner would be quite dim, but the light glowing from the face of the baby Jesus is so bright because Jesus says, I am the light of the world. medics want to use the light. For medics, light is a source of nutrients, food for the skin, food for the soul. Who doesn't feel better when the sun is on their back and there's a sense of health and well-being? Vitamin D. We normally prefer the sunny side of the street. Jesus said, I am the light of the world. For surgeons, light is the means of seeing what's hidden. The camera on a stick, the endoscope, the sun, that allows the surgeons to see inside, or the laser that does the precise surgery. And Jesus says, I am the light of the world. I can see inside, I can do something precise in your life. The architect wants us to live in the light. The architect wants us to allow it in, to make the most of the south-facing window. He wants us or she wants us to enjoy and appreciate, to get rid of the dark shadows and the dark corners. Instead, live in the joy of the light. Jesus said, I am the light of the world. The engineer focuses the light to cut, to focus it so intensely that it cuts through steel. The light changes an object's shape to make it more useful, to make it fit, to allow it to function well. The light is a powerful means of getting the right shape. I am the light of the world, Jesus says. I love the image of the lamplighter that my grandmother told me about. When at dusk, they would take a flame to the street, to the light, and light the candles and later the gas lamps along the road to help people find their way home. Horses were dangerous enough, but with the invention of the motor car and the motorbike, streets became far more dangerous, and these lights help people keep safe, help people get home. I am the light of the world. The producer, they use lights to help us focus on the right thing, to draw our attention to the truth, to introduce a new world and new stories, to present new ideas and a new focus. Jesus said, I am the light of the world. And of course, it's not just jobs, it's not just roles in society. I could have talked about lighthouse and neon advertising and torches and infrared heaters and stained glass and traffic lights. I could have talked about TVs and tablets and spotlights and rainbows. Host of other sources and forms of light. Jesus says, I am the light of the world. It's a huge thing. Maybe I've been a bit naughty. Maybe I've been a bit poetic. Maybe I've got a bit carried away. I can't imagine Jesus was thinking of lamplighters or engineers or artists when he said, I am the light of the world. But it is a massive concept. Such a huge idea. I was inspired a few years ago when Seven did a lecture on physics and light in one of our summer courses, and I didn't pretend to understand much of it, but the resonance with Genesis 1 and John 1 and Jesus saying, I am the light of the world, was just remarkable. I am the light of the world. John chapter 8 verse 12. It's pretty clear to me that though Jesus probably wasn't thinking about some of the things I've just said, he did have a lot in mind when he said it. He was arguing with the Jewish leaders. They were getting really angry. They were well versed in the Old Testament, and they understood quickly what Jesus was claiming, and he was claiming something huge. To the extent that they started to pick up stones, ready to stone him to death. So in chapter 9, very next chapter, verse 1, Jesus heals a blind man and lets the light in. And then he says it again, I am the light of the world. The first spoken words recorded in Scripture are God speaking into darkness. And he says, let there be light. Let there be light. This light comes out of himself. It expresses himself. It brings revelation and glory and understanding and wisdom and intellect and rationality. It emanates from the command of God and is the source of all life. And Jesus says to these Jewish leaders, I am the light of the world. It's not surprising because that was God's first command. It's not surprising that light so much reflects who God is and what he does and who Jesus is. Comfort and ancient and mysterious and wise, joyful and hopeful and warm. Food, internal examinations, living in the light, cutting away the rubbish, helping us home, helping us focus on the bigger story. Let there be light. The nation of Israel was meant to be a light to other nations. The prophet Isaiah, one of the major prophets in the Old Testament, was calling the people to be a light to all the nations, to be a model of how a country should work. To be a model of how people should be cared for and looked after, a model of justice and righteousness, of order in society and concern for each other and for the individual, a society that reflects the character of God, a light to the nations. And when Jesus said, I am the light of the world, it was like he was saying, Israel has failed to be a light to the nations. You need a new light, leaders. You need a new light. I am the light of the world. So it's not surprising that they wanted to pick up stones to stone him. Their understanding of a nation, their self-understanding as an example nation, a model nation, a nation that Jesus said somehow had failed. And now Jesus says, I am the light of the world. I will demonstrate the character, the order, the beauty of God to the nations. I'll show them the ways to live and the ways to be and the ways to organize, the ways to respond and how to be in this world. I am the light of the world. At his birth, at Christmas, there was lots of light. The angel choirs singing on the hillside outside Bethlehem, demonstrating the glory of God to the shepherds as they lit up the sky. Celebration of the Emmanuel, God with us. The mysterious star that appears to the travelers from the east that leads them to the place where the baby lays his head. Following the light, following the star, finding the true light that lights everyone. When John writes about it, he simply says, light has entered the world. The true light that lights everyone has come into the world. Jesus was that light, and that light was the light for all people. The light for us to see what God is like. The light for us to understand the true representation of God that Jesus shows us. Jesus shows us what God is really like. Light has come. If you want to know what God is like, look at the light. If your eyes can bear it, look at Jesus. The light of the world has come. God has come. God has moved into the neighborhood. I am the light of the world, says Jesus. What a claim. And if he'd only said it, we could probably ignore it. We could easily have written him off as a messianic pretender or someone with a God complex. We could say that this man is crazy, delusional. How should we respond to someone so mixed up, so mad? Maybe we should pick up stones and try and kill him. But how can someone so mixed up, so mad, so crazy, open the eyes of the blind and demonstrate that he is the light of the world? So my challenge this morning is to look into the light. To look at the light, to examine the light, to see if it makes sense. To see if it sheds light on life. The hard way of doing that is to do some study, read some books. An easier way is to read the Gospels and ask Jesus to reveal himself to you, to show himself to you, to show himself more of the light that comes from his face, to ask for revelation that you would see Jesus. to bring understanding to your mind, to bring light to your circumstances, to bring the light and life of God to your spirit. Do Alpha. While you're thinking about that, I just want to finish by talking to a few of us who are trying to follow the light, trying to follow Jesus. Because as well as Jesus saying, I am the light of the world, he also said, you are the light of the world. You are the light. We read it in our service earlier on in Matthew chapter 5. You are the light of the world. And it works in two ways, Jesus said. It works in two ways. One is an individual light in a house that you don't put under a bucket, but you put on top of a stand, and it lights the whole house. And Jesus says, that's what you are. You carry this light. You carry all of those things that I said about Jesus, all of those wonderful truths that he has, God with us, bringing comfort and warmth, bringing something ancient and mysterious and glorious and beautiful, shedding light and life and love, bringing you're the light of the world. Jesus says you fill the room. Fill the room with your light. Fill the room with the light that is in you because of me. You are the light of the world. So you fill your house, you fill your office, you fill the Zoom room with the light of Jesus as we reflect his light, as you are the light. It says it works in a different way too. It works as we come together. It works like a city of light set on a hill. Like a bundle of lights together that help people find their way home. They help people recognize that there's a place for them. There's a welcome. And that's church. That's us together. Being light together individually, yes, in our homes and our workplaces, but being light together in this place here, as in his church, in Kingsland, a city set on a hill made up of all sorts of lights that shine out with the programs and the activities and the testimonies, all the stories about what God is doing in your life and their life and my life. All our individual stories making up together the light, like a city. A light that we can invite people to. Things like the mental health seminar and the Big Sing Christmas thing and a light on a hill. And I'm tempted to mention how much brighter our light will shine as a church when we have downstairs. But I don't like talking about church stuff when I'm trying to talk about Jesus. But I'm sure you get the idea. Jesus, the light of the world, attracted by the warmth and the brilliance of his teaching. The fact that we see everything else in his light. Jesus, the light of the world, ancient and beautiful and mysterious and clever. Truth, lightness and joy, food for the soul and the skin, bringing light to what is hidden. Jesus, the light of the world, inviting us to live in the joy of his presence, cutting away the rubbish. A light to help us find our way home, to keep us safe, to focus on the big things, the new things. This light shows God. He's the new Israel, God with us. Jesus, the light of the world. You are the light of the world, says Jesus. To light the whole room, to be part of a city set on a hill, to light the whole area with the beauty and glory of Jesus. Let's stand and pray.